Hello everyone, my name is Lisa and I'm the Viet vegan because I'm Viet and I'm vegan. And today we're making my latest food obsession, which is Dolsot Bibimbap. In Korean, Dolsot Bibimbap translates to stone bowl mixed rice, Dolsot being stone bowl, mixed rice being bibimbap. And it is like one of those really delicious, super easy dinners that you can meal prep, surprisingly. It is a bit of a labor intensive recipe because there's like so many different components, but the magical part about bibimbap is that once you meal prep all the different side dishes at the beginning of the week, then you can have bibimbap literally every day for like 4 days. And it takes like 10 minutes to like reheat all the food. So it's a great time. The only specialized equipment that you may need is a ceramic bowl, which is the Dolsot. You can order it online. I got mine from Galleria, which is a local Korean market. You might find it at Patmart or H-Mart. You can use cast iron. You don't even really need the stone bowl if you just want regular bibimbap, which most people just do in a bowl, adding all the things hot and just mixing it all together and eating. But something about the crispy rice and the sizzling sounds of everything cooking together just is a great time. Plus, this is how I like to reheat my food. I do it over the stove, I cover it with a lid, and then it gets all hot, crispy, and delicious. So we're gonna start off making some sauce. I'm making a gochujang based sauce here. In the sauce, we're using gochujang, toasted sesame oil, oleosaccharide, but you can substitute like maple syrup, mirin, or liquid sweetener, brown sugar, whatever, rice vinegar, garlic, and toasted sesame seeds. It is kind of spicy. Frankly, I don't really find it spicy at all, but I do recognize that my taste buds are different from the average person who doesn't eat spicy food. If you want to make a less spicy version, you can use, I think there's like mild gochujang sauces that exist out there that you can use that instead, or you can cut it with doenjang if you can find vegan doenjang, because most that I've seen are vegan friendly, but I've seen anchovies in it before. Anyway, all the ingredients are listed in the blog post down below. Please click on that for the recipe. I will not be listing it in the description because it is just far too long. It's all there. It's printable if you really want to, and there's a jump to the recipe button. The next part we're going to prepare is the bulgogi ground beef. So I'm using Beyond Meat here, so obviously it is vegan. You can use tofu crumbles, you can use TVP, you can use soy curls if you want to. Whatever proteiny type thing you want to do it. I'm using about 12 ounces here, or I think it's like 340 grams, like a block of tofu crumbled would be fine. You can just use the same marinade that I used down below. I also used a jalapeno chopped up in this just because I had one, but you don't have to use this. You could also use like Korean hot pepper if you want to. That would also be a delicious time. For the most part, just follow the recipe that I have down below. So I cook everything in my cast iron skillet. I've tried marinating it before and it doesn't really make any difference in terms of like flavor, so I don't bother marinating it. Slap everything together, mix it all up, cook it in a pan until it's nice, browned, and delicious. Then remove from heat, set aside. The next part we're going to be preparing is the seasoned mushroom. I believe the Korean word for this side dish is called beuseus. Beuseus namul? Obviously I don't speak Korean, so I don't know. But I'm using some flower mushrooms here, which are often labeled at the grocery store as shiitake mushrooms, but they are significantly cheaper than shiitake mushrooms. So you can usually tell if they're flower mushrooms versus shiitake mushrooms because they have that kind of like crackly surface on top. You can use shiitake mushrooms here if you have the money, and if you have them around you, by all means, please use shiitake mushrooms. Use whatever mushrooms you like, but I find flower mushrooms nice, meaty, delicious, as long as you cut off the sort of stem because it can be really tough and chewy. So the package that I got here was 12 mushrooms, but the recipe that I have written down below is about 10 flower mushrooms. Do whatever you like and add more sauce if you feel like you need more sauce, okay? So we're using some soy sauce, oleosaccharide. Again, you can use a liquid sweetener, a brown sugar, or maple syrup here if you like. It just adds like a nice glossiness to the dish with oleosaccharide. I believe it's a type of corn syrup, honestly, so you could use corn syrup if you wanted to. Use whatever you feel like, okay? Then I use some toasted sesame oil and some rice vinegar. I usually let that marinate while I prepare the rest of the dishes, but I'm just gonna show you how I cook everything together towards the end. The next part we're going to prepare is the seasoned zucchini, which I believe is hobak bokkeum. I'm using gray zucchini here, but any regular zucchini will work. Actually, gray zucchini was cheaper than the regular green zucchini that I found at the Korean market, so I went for gray zucchini. I don't really notice much of a difference. I feel like gray zucchini is maybe like a little bit less watery. You can cut it into matchsticks or julienne, or you can cut it into half moons. Eddie doesn't really like the texture of zucchini, so I generally try to julienne it because I made the mistake of making it half moons and he did not enjoy that. So if it's smaller, then he doesn't mind it in food. So we're gonna season it with some kosher salt, some garlic, and then we're gonna let that sit for a little bit while I finish preparing the rest of the vegetables, but we're gonna stir fry everything together with a bit of vegetable oil. So next we're preparing our seasoned carrots. Again, this is super simple. I don't even add like garlic or anything like to this. I just use a little bit of salt because again, you're using a gochujang sauce at the end, so it's like really strong in flavor. You know, it'll be flavorful, don't you worry. I'm using some carrots here. I like to cut it on like a diagonal and then I cut those into matchsticks. If you have a julienne peeler or like a mandolin slicer, by all means use that. But sometimes I just find it like really cathartic. Just, you know, go at it with my knife and just have at it, you know? Although I will admit carrots are my least favorite thing to cut because they're just a little dangerous sometimes if you don't have like the proper knife situation and hand holding situation. Always knuckles first. Protect your fingers, you know what I'm saying? Next up, we're preparing our kongnamul muchim, which is the seasoned soybean sprouts. I find that Korean cuisine usually uses soybean sprouts instead of mung bean sprouts. Vietnamese, we love mung bean sprouts, but I'm not gonna lie, I tried soybean sprouts and they're a great time. Plus they have a higher protein content than mung beans. I'm washing them and I'm also washing the spinach because we're gonna use the same pot of water to boil them both. I'm using about 454 grams of soybean sprouts. I don't know, it's just the bag that they came in. I estimated it's like 5 to 6, you know, cups of soybean sprouts. And then for my greens, traditionally you would use spinach and you'd use like the adult spinach with like the long stem and everything. However, I only had snow pea shoots in my fridge. I didn't bother buying the spinach greens because kind of the same but different, you know? Plus I love me a snow pea shoot. They're just really delicious. So you prepare them exactly the same. I don't really feel like it is traditional in Korean culture, but you know what? It is delicious. So you're gonna bring a large pot of water to a boil and add some salt. I use iodized salt here for, you know, that iodine content, but you can use whatever salt you want to just sort of season the water. Add your soybean sprouts, submerge everything in water, you know, mix it in there so that, you know, it turns and it stays submerged. Cover and let cook for about 5 minutes. Remove everything from the pot of water and then you're gonna add your greens, whether it's spinach greens, snow pea shoots, whatever greens that you decide to use. Something leafy, something silky and will wilt nicely. You know what I'm saying? Spinach or leafy greens like snow pea shoots really only need to wilt for about a minute or two. You're just gonna want to wilt them until they're nice and bright green and then immediately remove from the water. I like to drain it into a pot and then run cold water over it to shock the cooking process so it stops. So you don't get like a sad, dark, green, mushy situation. You want bright, fresh, green deliciousness. Squeeze out all the water and then because these are a little bit more fibrous than spinach can be, I like to chop them into about 1/2 inch sizes or like 1 to 2 centimeter sizes. If you're using spinach though, I would just cut it to 1 inch or 2 inch pieces, you know, for a little bit of texture, green deliciousness. I do the same thing with the soybean sprouts. I rinse them in cold water and then I kind of let them drain and squeeze out as much water as I can. Otherwise it'll be very watery and I have to add extra seasoning and then it's like, you know, wet. It's not very good. I add a buttload of green onions, some garlic, toasted sesame oil, and some salt. You can also add vegan fish sauce or soy sauce if you want to. I find that I really like just salt. And then some toasted sesame seeds. You know, this is one of those things that you can measure with your heart. If you like it saltier, make it a bit saltier. But again, remember that we're adding this to a bowl with a bunch of gochujang sauce, so it will be salty in the end. Then back to the sigeumchi namul seasoned greens situation. Because I use snow pea shoots, I cut them into like 1 centimeter or like 1/2 inch pieces. But if you're using spinach, just cut it into 1 inch pieces. So it's easier to chew, you know what I'm saying? You're gonna add some fresh garlic and then a little bit of salty, a little bit of toasted sesame seed oil and then more toasted sesame seeds. Korean cuisine is a big fan of toasted sesame, okay? And you know what? I don't blame them. It's delicious. All right, so now that those two are seasoned, we're gonna go back to the zucchini and the carrot and the mushroom. So we're gonna add some oil to a cast iron pan. We're gonna cook that zucchini. Because I julienned it, it takes a little bit less time to cook than if you half mooned it, for example. Just cook it until it's translucent. You don't want it to be like falling apart, but you don't want it to be raw either. You don't want it to be crunchy. Personally, I don't enjoy a super crunchy bibimbap situation. And then I scoop it into this amazing container that I got from the Korean supermarket. I went to Galleria, if you saw in my Instagram stories, but they have all these like divided compartments for Banchan, which is amazing. So I'm very excited to use it. Korean containers are just like next level, man. Clean out that pan, but like you don't have to clean it, but just like, you know, clean out all the zucchini. And then you're gonna put your carrots in there with a little bit of vegetable oil. You're gonna cook those until they're softened, because again, I don't really like a very crunchy bibimbap situation. But like, look how satisfying the compartments are. It's just so good. Oh, I love this container so much. I wish I could link it for you. I haven't been able to find it online. It is from a Korean market and it was a Korean brand. So, you know, support your local Korean market if you have one close to you. So now we're cooking those mushrooms. Look how juicy and succulent they are. Oh, what a good time. I like to cook them until they're kind of lightly browned on both sides. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just want them to be juicy, meaty, and delicious and cooked through. And then the mushrooms will also kind of soak up all that sauce. And like, look how juicy and delicious that is. Oh my God. You can also sprinkle a little toasted sesame seed on this if you want as well, but you know, it's whatever. Like I said, it's a bit labor intensive just to prepare all the different side dishes, but once they're all prepared, you're ready to make bibimbap in 10 minutes. Speaking of which, let's do that. So I'm using 1 cup of short grain rice here. I just find it stickier, starchier, and more delicious. Use whatever rice you want. I actually have a purple rice recipe on my blog if you want to check that out and use that in here. It is also delicious. I use an oiled spoon to sort of like spread the rice thin. You could also just wet your spoon if you don't want to use more oil. Layer all of your banchan together around the bowl. This is from a couple days ago, so you can see that I have the half moon zucchini instead of the julienne zucchini. Either way you want to do it, it's delicious. It's a great time. Now, my ceramic dolsot says that you can use it on the stove or an oven or however you want to use it. So check your stone bowls. So I usually cover it and cook it, and that way if my things are from the fridge, they have time to like heat up, and you just want to let it sort of heat under that lid for about 5 to 10 minutes over medium heat until everything is nice, steamy, cooked through, and the bottom is nice and crispy. Meanwhile, I'm cutting up a piece of perilla leaf for a little extra herbaceous flavor. You know, it's just nice. Look at that. Add your gochujang sauce, give it a mix, and it's a delicious time. Comforting, it's healthy, it's satisfying. You have like a buttload of different textures, different colors. It's just a great time. And it is perfect for meal prep. So again, if you want to make this, I'll leave everything linked down below in the recipe on thevietvegan.com. I hope you try this. I hope you eat this. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a delicious day.